Hi, welcome. On this video, this is part three of my breakdown series discussing the issues related to using a clicker when it comes to resolving a relationship problem between the dog and owner. And again, this goes in this whole thing about what defines training. Again, I talk about once a relationship problem is underway, training takes the path of a intervention between dog and owner, with the focus on bringing the spotlight onto the dog owner in terms of their role. And again, bringing at the same time, bringing in the core ingredients I talk about: influence and control, in terms of change at the social level. Dogs as social animals, as it relates to how a dog's decision-making process is influenced and governed. So again, talk about your role, absolutely critical. And so here in this video, I'm going to talk about this whole thing about, the role of influence itself. Again, I define it in terms of, as, a dog is expressing control by way of a relationship problem. This gets in this whole thing about being dialed into the relationship the right way. Talk about dog's level of stinking thinking, okay, as I call it. And it's no different than, again, I talk about, the selfish child example, the parenting example. Think about it: as a child becomes more and more selfish, behavioral issues escalate. And even in terms of how the child's attitude as it relates to that. And so, think of dogs as social animals. As, control starts to manifest, as the dog gains more and more control in the relationship, behavioral issues escalate right to a point of aggression. So, that's the spillover effect. But here's the problem. And again, understand that this is where I say appearances can be very deceiving and are very deceiving in the dog training world. So dogs can look, balanced. They can look well behaved. This is where the typical comment from dog owners is that my dog is pretty good most of the time, except. Well, the pretty good part is the deceptive nature of appearances. As a dog is gaining control, being fulfilled that way, comfort that way, a dog will look okay and not be okay at all. And so this is that disconnected part of where appearances get us into a lot of trouble, and people get blindsided when a moment of aggression seems to appear out of nowhere, and you're like thinking, what happened? Well, I tell people all the time, I tell you what happened is that this is the thing about what's revealed or not revealed. Again, consider moments that are revealed to when the core ingredients are there: influence and control. Say when you have your dog on a leash, you're advocating leadership, and you'll see challenges start to rise up. Okay, those are the moments of revelation through, again, no different than think about as a parent. When's the child's bad attitude, exposed? Well, certain expectations that are in place, such as the child being put under a demand to clean up their room because you're the parent, okay, not here's $100. Think of the difference, okay? So for a selfish child, typically what's going to happen is that, well, no, I don't want to pick up my toys. It's like, what's in it for me? So think about in the dog training community, ask the question, how do trainers, just like here with Adam Spivey, how do they engage a relationship problem? Treats, right? Using motivating agents, right? So you can get a response very quickly. Doesn't mean those responses can be or should be trusted. Okay, how do you define, where how you currently perceive? Well, the core ingredients, when they're in play through a interaction-based approach, that's the reveal. But that's not what happens with these trainers. They don't go into it aligned that way. They don't go into it thinking that way. This is like so entrenched in the dog training community, and that's the problem. Understand that these trainers, that's just that's their go-to. It's so ridiculous, because once you line this stuff up and say, okay, why is it that so many dogs are getting blamed? How is it that things can look fantastic as dogs are moving around for treats or what they want, for this, doing a sit down, come and stay. But then so many dog owners they go back into the real world, back home with their dog, and they're still struggling in the relationship. Like, what's really going on? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. It's this idea of things. Think about it. So, if you're a dog owner, pay attention to the information I put out. It's critical if you really care about your dog, because what these trainers do is when the chips are down and things aren't lining up, well, they just wash their hands of it. Because it's just about making money. It's so easy because they think that this is like a free ride. They can just ride the wave of this ideology, and they've done it for years. But look at the state of the dog training world. Line this stuff up. So let's play some more of this video as I talk through all this, because I just want dog owners, to make sense of this. Okay, just understand the dog training community isn't happy with this information I put out because it's not in their best interest. They don't want to talk about it, but they're committed to blaming dogs, and they're committed to pushing us right to the very end.
Give your dog a bit of dinner. Click, bit of dinner. Click, bit of dinner. I want you to do that until the food is all gone. By the time the dog has finished its dinner, it should understand this sound.
So again, you're incentivizing the dog, right? You're building on this concept. So think of it like a selfish child. You clean up your room, you get the new Xbox game. You clean up your room, you get $100. You clean up your room, you get, you're tying it into something of value, but it's totally, disconnected from, depth of relationship. It's totally disconnected from, at the social level in terms of your role. It lacks depth. It's just based on superficial responses. And then the fact that here's the kicker: the fact you're already the reason you're going to a trainer is that you're in a mess. Okay, you're experiencing relationship problems. So there's the problem. So when you ask the question, well, when does bribery come? When does bribery? How do you define bribery? Well, it's defined this way: when you have a relationship problem and this is your level of engagement. Okay, no critical thinking, no thought process about why this would be a problem for so many people. And then just like leaving the scene of a crime, you're just walking away saying you're good to go. Just trust these responses the way that they're being generated. And you should be thinking, well, is this all training? Like, is this it? Like a sit down comments, like, I don't even understand. See, that's the problem. This is why I spend so much time talking through all this stuff. And a lot of these trainers don't like that. They're all appearance driven. So it's like trainers will say, well, show me the results. Show what exactly? With these trainers, that's all it is a show. It's a sideshow. It's a freak show, right? Because, just in terms of the response level, there's no depth. It's a circus. It's ridiculous. They don't want to connect dots. They don't want to answer questions as to, okay, what, those responses, like how you actually assessing that those responses are what you think that they are. There's no because the criteria I talk about, it's not it can't be. You can't reconcile the criteria the way I described through this ideology that way, through how you're engaging, getting dogs to respond that way. It's not reconciled that way. So this is the problem, right? So here he's engaged. That's what he's doing. Is just basically saying, don't ask any questions. Like, don't think about anything. Just trust what you're seeing. That is so ridiculous. Like, there's no thought processes. Okay, there's a big piece missing here in terms of the relationship itself. In terms of defining change. Like, what's the piece? Well, it's the piece I talk about. Okay, I mean, it follows a path of a intervention, not a learning-based exercise this way at all.
How do you know if your dog understands this sound? Simply wait until your dog's not paying attention to you. Click that. Your dog should tell.
So not paying attention to you. So think about, again, the permissive. Now you're dealing with a relationship problem already, right? The permissive dynamic where a child goes to a parent because they get what they want. So it's all about, I don't care about the context of focus. As long as I get the dog focused on me, it's all about the motives that underpin anything, or the context of those perceptions in terms of how you perceived in the relationship itself. It's just like, just trust that the focus is what it is, and it's ridiculous. So understand the trainers here, there's no context of anything, because it doesn't follow the path of defining your role properly to begin with. Understand that.
Turn in the direction where it hears that and come running. If that's the case, you have now successfully charged the clicker. So, when the clicker is charged, you're now ready to go out. The mistake a lot of people make with reactive dogs, though, is they'll go to a dog park full of dogs where they're likely to run over to you. Or you'll try and walk around the streets where you're going to get stuck coming face to face with a dog.
See, that's the whole thing. Now it's like, so because it's all superficial, okay, and this is what these trainers will do. It's like they try to, okay, because it's so superficial, there's no depth, there's no context, no anything, and then they'll try to fix it. Okay, they try to make this fit in somehow because no, there's going to be problems right away. Okay, understand that because it's like they already know it, so they try to clean it up right away. They say, oh well, if you go into the dog, like understand what's going on here. There's no because the foundation's wrong to begin with. So understand when you hear these trainers talk about, well, just be aware of it's like the fine print. Like there's like 20 pages of fine print, okay, that you have to read through. But basically, the takeaway here is that, this is not the way to go. Okay, understand that this is like worse than a crapshoot.
You want to pick your battles. You want to go somewhere where you can see dogs, but you can control the space.
Yeah, so this is like, okay, we're gonna be careful here. And this is the thing, right? It's like it's always about walking on eggshells because it's the whole thing with because this is a snow job. Okay, this is a janky. Okay, this is one of those things where you're trying to fix something using duct tape. Okay, it's like it's so and this is why you hear all these exception clauses here like be careful. Don't let's stay out on the outside here. We've got to control this at such a level because that's why when you go in the video content, a lot of trainers, it's like 80s infomercial where it's so controlled, right? It's like highly edited, controlled because God forbid that you should see the real picture. Okay, that's why Zach George and trainers like that, you go on and how they edit their material or the video content because it's like agreeableness, and this is why certain concepts such as counter conditioning are problematic because the context of agreeableness, right? It's like there's given like snapshots of the relationship, but not the whole relationship because you can't possibly. They don't want to show you this being put to the test at all points where you're getting transparency that way, so you can make an informed decision and say, this ain't look all these other bad moments. Like that's the thing. It's like the moments I talk about. When's truth revealed? Well, when parental influence is part of the equation. Like clean up your room because you're the parent. So they're showing you snapshots of here's $100 to clean up your room, right? This is what this is about. And it's like they don't want to. They're framed. This is a frame job. Understand that this is how this stuff works.
My recommendation would be something like a Pets at Home. Most Pets at Homes are on industrial estates that have car parks. Most Pets at Home, you're going to see dogs coming and going, people coming and going. If it's people your dog's reactive to, Tesco's, Asda's, Lidl's, car parks of supermarkets. You basically want to pick a place where you're going to see that trigger that your dog reacts to coming and going, but you can hang out in the distance.
Yeah, you better be in the far distance, okay? And this is where I talk about, proximity, right? And don't get me wrong, you're going to start even through this system of training. You do start, okay? You're going to control. You're going to start, in terms of managing things from a bit of a distance. But it's all about overcoming everything. The problem with this way is like things never get resolved. Like the perception of dogs never really change for many dogs and owners. And so it's like you're walking on eggshells, or you see these people with the treat bags and they're dispensing the treats like a Pix candy machine because they're in a panic, right? Because they know that I got to keep that focus going on me because God forbid that dog starts to focus and controls manifesting. See, that's the problem. It's like you already know it's janky, right? So the whole thing with distance and framing this up you never get to a situation where you're confident in what you do and you're right, next to another dog, and your dog's totally relaxed. Like that should be the goal, right? Is like this is like it actually the relationship itself actually resolves itself. But what you see here with a lot of these trainers is it doesn't resolve itself, and they're always like in a panic state, even with the dispensing the treats, because they know it's janky.
Now, here's what you're going to do. The second your dog sees that trigger, but before it reacts, you're going to click this.
See there, and here's the difference. Now, this is about, and the difference with these trainers is I talk about bribery in the role of influence, and the issue about stinking thinking, control manifesting. This is where the rubber meets the road, where I talk about the role of influence in terms of intercepting an express state versus trying to redirect and change the dog's focus. So for bribery-based trainers, they're confused, right? They don't follow the path of an intervention. They don't define properly the role of influence. And so it's a difference between, think of it this way, the association to, right, receiving a treat. Think of it like a selfish child that's mouthing off at you because you're in the middle of a relationship problem. The child's selfish. They have a bad attitude. They're mouthing off at you, right? Bad behavior. And suddenly out of nowhere, you pull out a chocolate bar out of your back pocket and just hold it slightly to the side. And so the child changes their focus. They stop mouthing off because what's happening right now? They want the chocolate bar. So there's an appearance of a calm moment because you just pulled out the chocolate bar or whatever it is that you pull out of your back pocket. It could be a brand new, I used a brand new Xbox game. Okay, whatever that thing is, that motivator, and that change of focus, right? And so what's happening here? It's the same type of thing because control is manifesting. You're in a relationship problem, and so everything becomes a supply source to the dog. The dog's fixating, investing, through expressing control, right? It's a pathway to gaining control in and through relationship that way, other dogs, people. And so you're trying to change the dog's focus, but then you're trying to package that moment up, that appearance of calm, as your foundation for change. Trying to package that moment up, define that moment as though things are heading the right direction. Those moments represent that the dog's having their perception of change in the right way, and that's totally inherently flawed. Okay, based on the fact that it's about context. Think about the same thing. The child's focus changed for the chocolate bar. Ask the question: does that mean that the child's attitude's getting better? No, it's because you're actually bribing. Okay. You're engaging those themes. I talk about bribery, accommodation, negotiation. Those are the themes that are in play with those within that, say, the permissive parenting style, because they have an attitude about parenting. That's why there's different parenting styles. That's all the question too. The permissive parenting style. What are the consequences of that parenting style? I mean, go and do your research. Okay, this doesn't lead the relationship into a good place at all. It causes more chaos. The real issue doesn't get fixed. Right, brings you in conflict with even a different, say your spouse, so all those things that's what you see in the dog training world. The real issue never gets fixed, right? But it will lend to an appearance of change without change itself. Understand all of it. So I'm gonna stop here for part 3. This is a great video to actually work off of, okay? Because my goal is to educate and inform dog owners and even trainers to say this is the inherent problem in the dog training world. Okay, there's lack of depth, lack of context. The core ingredients aren't there because it's impossible to reconcile those through this learning-based idea of things. And so you need to step back and ask yourself some questions as to what's going on here. But very popular, right? You can make thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars off of this. These trainers do that. But it's a total snow job, right? And it's become normalized, blaming dogs. Dogs have become pawns here, and it appeals to people's emotions. So people who are drawn to this are being led into a false, sense of change, And then they wonder why they're spinning the wheels and that it's like things don't resolve themselves. That's what's going on. Thanks for watching.